leaving the Castle de Amorosa outside of Calistoga.
Cassandra's castle.
This is my castle for today. Queen of the castle. And this is our mini interview.
Yeah, so here we are with Cassandra. Napa Valley, wine country. So what makes Cassandra tick?
Oh yes, let's just jump straight into the light questions, shall we? There's a few things that make me tick, in particular the inspiration for humans to access and reach their infinite potential is a big part of why I'm here on the planet, to facilitate the ascension of human consciousness. Because everybody's a genius, and most people just have never been told that, or have been supported in that experience of becoming. Yes. And there are no dull moments, nor ordinary moments, or wasted moments. And I think that once we can integrate the experiences that we've had, we have the ability to learn from them. And I think I've just been lucky enough to have been guided in a way that allows me the opportunity to explore that on a regular basis, and was gifted an upbringing that was supportive with that. And I've had a lot of work to do with cleaning up the unsupportive parts of that childhood, and yet I've been on a pretty consistent mission for the last, I don't know, I think my transformation really started when I was 14, in starting to look at really what is mine and what do I believe, and then what is it that is no longer serving me and would really be beneficial to shift. And it's a constant exploration. You know, it's a constant manifestation of exploring and divulging the intimate details of what's real and what has been real. And it's interesting, when I started getting into subconscious reprogramming, how there's minutia that ends up having a big ripple effect in the future. And it may not seem like a big deal now when we look back to that childhood incidents, but it might have been as simple as somebody said that they would come pick me up from school, and they didn't. They forgot, or they got enraptured in their own life, which is totally okay, and yet that may have created a huge chasm with trust, and may have created the belief that people will lie to me, and people who say they're going to take care of me don't actually step up and take care.
So suddenly you don't trust the world. I mean, you have to test. I mean, you have to rely on yourself and not the world.
Yeah, and it can be expressed in really subtle ways, and it can be expressed as passive aggressive. I see it in a lot of people that are like, you know what, I'll just do it myself.
Mm-hmm. But going back to you, because you mentioned an age 14, yeah, usually it's during around that age when people are forming their self-identity, and in other words, people find out who they really are during that age.
There's definitely a time to explore that, and that's what that rebellion is all about. Often in teenage years is rebelling against what we've always known to be true, and I think that it's just less constructive than it could be in a lot of ways. And yet it's also extremely valuable for everyone to have that opportunity to kind of move through the boundaries that have been set in place and what they've been taught to believe. And most of the formative programming and the formatting really comes from that second half of utero up to 6 years old, when we live in a full-on theta brainwave state. And theta is hypnotic trance. And so whatever's happening around us in that time, spoken or unspoken, patterns and influences are just being sponged up and imprinted into the system. And since the subconscious is a habituated program as well, every time that particular instance arises, we react in a patterned way. So where does the creativity come from? I mean, your thirst for creating beautiful things. It's not necessarily a search in any way. It's just kind of following my inspiration and being compelled. I like to call myself autistically crafty because it's compulsive. It's a type of therapy, and I have no real expectation when I begin of what is becoming. And that's actually the most beautiful part of the process, is that the process happens naturally, and it's just being inspired by what's around me, whether that's, bits and bobs and gems and frill and fabric and lace, or leaves and sticks and mud, and it's just... Or whatever's at hand. Yeah, whatever's at hand. And it's really an experiential knowledge. It's, the intention is just to create, and then in the end, it's really beautiful because then I get an opportunity to open my eyes, and like I said recently, Spirit says, look at what I've made through you. And it's always the most stunning experience to witness, because I know it's not the thing that has the importance. The journey is the medicine. And in the end, it's just nice to have a really shiny new thing to play with. You mentioned that there's no expectations of the result. Because I know it's going to be awesome. Yeah. Like, the thing is that, like guidance doesn't ever really have me do anything that's less than spectacular. And guidance is the truth with a capital T in the heart space, and it sounds really woo-woo. I think if I were to look at that statement from an external and objective perspective.
No, I think if I were to rephrase it, is that some people are, focused on the end result or the destination. You're focused for you. The state of being is also as important, not just the result. Is that what? Is that a fair?
Absolutely, yes. It is the experience of the making.
It's the journey. It's the
absolutely
being in the moment.
Yeah.
You seem like a high performance person. In other words, for you, being always busy, active, doing something is important.
Let me reframe that really quickly, because busy work is useless. As much as there are no ordinary moments. It's not being busy, it's being on task, even if that's intentionally resting. There are certain brainwave states that have a high efficiency output, and most people spend their life thinking away, usually stuff that's totally irrelevant, thoughts of the past and thoughts of the future filled with guilt or shame or anxiety, and that generates cortisol, which is a stress hormone. It shuts down the digestive tract and pulls all the blood from the viscera and moves it to the muscles so you can run away and fight or flight, scarcity consciousness and victim consciousness. because when you're in defense mechanism mode, you're not healing or growing or evolving. And so the application of this information moves from information to knowledge to wisdom. And it's about having access to the higher potential that humans are capable of. Teleportation, telepathy, telekinesis, all these things are real. And so is immortality. And yet the status quo has been as such that people have forgotten all of this. Everybody's psychic. And yet most people are so caught up in the hindbrain tendencies that there's less availability for those higher functions to exist.
Because they're not exploring it also in the first place, right?
Because we haven't been taught to. We've been taught to think about what we don't want, what we don't like, don't, not. And the truth of the matter is that humans have this amazing capacity and are very talented creators on a very basic physics level. The heart has the largest electromagnetic field in the body. It's 5,000 times stronger than the brain. And the heart is literally a waveform generator. It's a transducer. It's always receiving vibratory information from the world as well as imprinting vibratory information into it. And every heartbeat is different. And it's either harmonic or dissonant. And so by thinking about what you don't like and you don't want and what doesn't feel good, other than the biochemical responses that you're generating, which are less than beneficial, you're also broadcasting a waveform into the field, and everything is just vibration. So generating that waveform and broadcasting it basically calls it back to you. The universe is like a mirroring agent. And so the more time we spend thinking about what we don't want, the more we get what we don't want. And that's where the challenge with having the subconscious be programmed the second half of utero to 6 years old is because the subconscious is running the show 95% of the time. And so learning how to go in and format what's really kind of controlling things is a really beneficial tool set to have. And so it's just the way that we've been taught to think and to be and basically give away our power. And it's been brilliantly designed. It was intentional. And it's great. Like, it's a really beautiful system. I don't necessarily agree with the intention. But the 99% and the 1%, like, there's a 1% for a reason. Like, let's really look at the tools that they're utilizing and implement them. Because they're obviously doing something right. And so maybe it's taking responsibility for one's thoughts and one's feelings and literally changing the harmonics of the field in which we exist in to create more of what we want is the answer.
I noticed that because I remember you saying once that you love that most of your endeavors also are science-based, that your interests are science-based, and the way you speak shows that you have a grasp of all sorts of sciences.
I wouldn't say all sorts of sciences necessarily. Just the one that really seems to resonate with me, which is a particular field of physics, unified field theory physics. And it's interesting because old paradigm physics and old paradigm sciences don't necessarily resonate with me at all. Like, anything that's really super attached to Newtonian mechanics is so outdated at this point. And yet it's still the status quo of understanding. And that's really sad to me because it's disempowering. And once again, it's a brilliantly designed system. And it's so old school. And we're learning now how to be a bit more intentional with what it is we're creating. And the beauty is that it's a revolution in evolution. The beauty is that the field is all expansive and all encompassing, and the more of our own work that we do, the easier it is for everyone else to do theirs as well, because it's supported. And that's the beauty and also the challenge, is that if you're living in a field that's unsupportive and an environment that's unsupportive, then it's a lot more challenging to create big internal leaps and movements in success, because there's no support. And yet, if you're in a community and an environment that is supportive for these different belief structures to take hold and build upon, then so much more becomes possible. So in some ways, it's, you know, kind of a bummer to me that humans are still relatively infantile in their...
Not many people think like you.
This is true. Yeah.
Yeah, I wish there was a community
there
of
is
more people like you.
And there is. That's
there
the thing.
is?
Oh yeah, like
Really?
I have friends that exist, and the thing is that that's why
Wow.
I'm here. Like, I would have left the planet a long time ago, by choice or by need if I was done. There had been opportunities for me to go, and yet I'm still here and still have work to do, because I'm here until everybody gets the memo. Like, I'm here until everybody remembers that they have this amazing internal technology to utilize to become masterful creators and create a heaven on earth. And I don't really get to go home until that's done. And so I'm really dedicated. I've been really dedicated for a long time, and will continue to be dedicated forever. It's my life's work, is giving people access to that part of themselves via science, because science has become dogmatically acknowledged as the only way.
The only true religion.
The only true religion. And so that's the beauty, is that now there's new sciences that exist that are able to measure these different frequency waveforms and able to track all these different changes. And it's so exciting, because finally there's scientific corroboration for what spiritual masters have been saying for millennia. And it's just framing it in a way where people feel able to grok it. And that's what I'm attempting to do, is create that bridge. Because the spiritual people get it, and yet sometimes they're a bit so ethereal that it's not being grounded into third dimensional reality. It's a little bit woo-woo, and I get that. And I also get that, that there's the people that have just never been exposed to this type of science before, that are still living in this old paradigm that's very separation consciousness. And it's okay. That's the thing, is that everyone's gonna get it if I have anything to do with it. And I have everything to do with it, because that's why I'm here. So my life is rotating around that. And that means being my best for me. And I still have tons of work to do. That's the thing, is that it's kind of a constant process of growing into oneself, and yet I feel like it's time for me to start sharing the tools that I've already cultivated to make things easier, which is why I'm writing a book. You know, how to be a functional human handbook, if you will. Because there are certain things that people never taught me in kindergarten. They would have made my life way easier. And so now I don't care if somebody's 5 or 85. I want to be able to share this information. If they have a heartbeat and a breath, I want them to be able to understand it. Because it's very simple and it's very basic. Because only I and only you, only every individual can choose their thoughts and their feelings. And that's where the rub comes in, is that we've been taught to project and to blame everything else for our external circumstances, as opposed to taking responsibility. Because we didn't know that we created it, and yet we do now.
What can average Joe or Jane get from you in terms of healing? Because the reason why I want to emphasize healing is because I think the reason why people are in their primal state is because all they feel and all their word is about pain and pleasure. So and they can receive your science because they're still in that stage. Yeah, so how can you heal them, the average Joe, Jane?
So here's the real clear specification is that I'm not healing anyone because it's them doing the work. But that's
okay.
also an old thing that's going to need to be shifted, is because when we're little, we're told, what are you told? Oh, you don't feel good, you're sick, you have to go to the doctor.
Yeah.
You go to the doctor. You don't even see the doctor, but you go to the doctors and you experience a miraculous healing. That's one of those belief structures that's so common.
And you have to take a drug.
Yeah, exactly. And so we've been taught to put our power in the pharmaceutical companies because we don't trust ourselves. And we don't feel like the body knows what to do. And that's a lot of this work, is learning how to trust oneself. And learning how to listen.
To trust ourselves, that we have the power or ability to heal ourselves.
That's first and foremost, is it first acknowledging that yes, it does exist as a possibility, and then two, cleaning out all the stuff that's in the way of making that a reality.
So how can you heal? I mean, how can you?
So education is first and foremost.
Okay, yeah.
Is opening the gateway and the path and the window. Because if you say to somebody, hey, you can heal yourself, and they say, no, I can't, then they're absolutely right. Like, no, they can't.
Yeah.
They're absolutely not going to. That's not an option. This is absolutely not an option. Unless by random freak chance. But ultimately, if somebody believes that they can't be healed, they're going to die real quick. And it's interesting because I've talked to some older people and I'm like, hey, how are you feeling? They're like, I'm not really feeling well at all. And I'm like, are you really, how do you feel like you're ready to leave this body? And
yeah, did you know that optimistic people they live almost 14 years longer?
That makes perfect sense. I can totally understand that. Because biochemically you function better. You're able to receive nutrients into your cells and get rid of wastes. It's really pretty straightforward. When you feel good, you produce anti-aging hormones. When you feel shitty, you produce stress hormones. All
it's a lot of wear and tear.
It's a lot of wear and tear on
fight or fight